Ethno-religions are usually pretty funny. For some reason, black people have managed to get the two coolest ones. The Nation of Islam, which I've already made a video about, and the Black Hebrew Israelites, which is what we're going to get into today. As I've previously said, the Nation of Islam has been described as racist, misogynistic, anti-science, homophobic, fatphobic, ableist, transphobic, as well as anti-Semitic. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your proclivities, the Black Hebrew Israelites are the exact same, if not a level above. The ADL lists them as a hate group, and Black Hebrew Israelites, per the ADL website, believe white people are agents of Satan, Jews are liars and false worshippers of God, and blacks are the true chosen people and are racially superior to other ethnicities. In my experience, the ADL is about as trustworthy as a Nigerian prince scam email, so I think I'll form my own opinions, actually. So anyway, we're going to be taking a look at the Black Hebrew Israelites and what they're all about. Let's start with the origins of the group. The first person to set up a Black Hebrew Israelite church was Frank Cherry. A bit about Cherry is that he was born in 1875 and worked as a sailor, and despite having no formal education, taught himself Yiddish and Hebrew, which is actually pretty impressive for the early 20th century. He was also a 33rd degree Scottish Rites Freemason, which is equally impressive given race relations in the early 20th century. Whilst abroad as a sailor, Cherry claimed to have a vision that African Americans are the true ancient Israelites, and when he returned to Tennessee, he started a congregation where he preached that white people were inherently evil and hated by God. This eventually led to him forming his own church, which he aptly named Church of the Living God, the Pillar Ground of Truth for All Nations, which is a mouthful. It was partially inspired by black nationalists like Marcus Garvey, the same Marcus Garvey that dubbed himself the first President General of the Universal N Improvement Association and African Communities League. Another mouthful. It's something that I noticed, that African/Third World self-appointed leaders always give themselves these self-aggrandized titles, which are usually hilarious, and is why henceforth I will be retitling myself as His Excellency, President for Life Everlasting, Conqueror of the YouTube Algorithm, Voice Eternal, and Supreme Commander-in-Chief of Cultural Enforcement Worldwide, His Royal Excellency, Stoic Stick. Anyway, key teachings that Cherry espoused include Adam and Eve were black, the earth is a square, and that Jesus would return in the year 2000 to start a race war. You know, just the basics. The second most notable early Black Hebrew Israelite figure is William Saunders Crowdy. Born in 1847 as a slave, he eventually managed to run away at the age of 17 and joined the Union Army, where he served for 9 years before being discharged in 1872. He then worked at a railroad company and went on to become a deacon at a local Baptist church. Coincidentally, he was also joined and was an active member of the Prince Hall Freemasons and worked his way up the ranks. The roots of Freemasonry seem to run a little deep in the context of the founding of the Black Hebrew Israelites, which is a little strange. Speaking of strange, he also began to have visions in 1893 that African Americans were the true descendants of the Israelites and set up the Church of God and Saints of Christ, and is regarded as a founder of the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. He also got arrested for building tabernacles around America illegally, which, if you don't know, is this huge Jewish land thing that they build, which was originally meant to hold the Ark of the Covenant. Probably not going to find it in farm country Kansas, but you know, whatever. Now, these were the two main figures in the founding of the Black Hebrew Israelites. Now we can get into what they actually believe, because it's well, you'll see. Now, the first thing they believe is that the original 12 tribes of Israel are not the Jewish ones. In fact, the Black Hebrew Israelites don't call themselves Jewish at all. They call themselves Jews. And the fake pretenders is only Jewish because they are only Jew-ish. They actually believe that the 12 tribes of Israel are actually black and North and South American peoples. What's particularly funny, I think, is that Haitians are supposedly the true tribe of Levi. The Levites were the priestly class and were known to be scholarly, which isn't the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Haitians, but, I could be wrong. Now, the evidence that they use to back up their claims is mainly from Deuteronomy chapter 28. From verse 32, "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand." Verse 48, "Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee." And verse 68, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies, for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Brought by ships with chains on the neck and sold into slavery." Yeah, that kinda sounds like black people. Except the last part of verse 68 where it says, "No man shall buy you," which kinda refutes the whole point. But maybe it's meant symbolically for no man shall come to save you from this fate. But, I don't know. 2. The black Hebrew Israelites also don't believe in racial equality. They believe that God has his kingdom with only the true Israelites and all others have no place in it, so will be destroyed and or enslaved when black people return to their Hebrew roots and God restores Israel. They look to Exodus 19:5, "Now therefore, if ye obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people." Through verses like these, black Hebrew Israelites justify their racism, which they kind of have a lot of. They have a particular racial grievance against white people who are seen as Edom, which is why you will often see videos of black Hebrew Israelites telling white people to
almost there, there's one last step. What does it say? And lick up the dust of thy feet. And the last thing, Jeremy, you can kiss this boot.
"Kiss my boot, Edomite." Which is kind of a zinger, I'm not going to lie. I will be using this phrase whenever I can. "Kiss my boot, Edom." This racial hierarchy is also a reason why black Hebrew Israelites are also against race mixing, and will publicly heckle interracial partners they see in public. Which is funny because Jewish Jews also agree with this sentiment except for their own people. 3. Jesus. Black Hebrew Israelites are kind of split on Jesus. Some believe that he was the Messiah, but that the white Jesus is a false prophet, and that the true Jesus was actually black. And others believe that he was a false Messiah because the Messianic age hasn't begun yet, because how could it be when most African Americans are still poor / under the thumb of other nations? What they all agree on, however, is that Christianity is a false religion made by the white man to stop black people from realizing their true destinies as God's chosen people. Which kinda leans a bit into the Yakub creating white people to oppress black people type of thinking that's pretty prevalent amongst most black supremacist religions. 4. Now this next one isn't actually a belief, but I had to mention it. They all like to wear what I can only describe as pimp purple for their garments. Just take a look at how cool these robes look. They have gold tassels and leather wristbands. It's kind of a mix between gothic and sorcery and pimp. I call it gimp. No, I'm only kidding. They kind of do have that shit on though, if we're being honest. Look at me with a straight face and tell me that these guys are not straight pimping. Yeah, you can't do it. It's not actually just a fashion statement though. It's supposedly done to reverse the image of black people being slaves, as the colours purple and gold are associated with royalty / kings in the Bible. So it technically is part of their religion, if only kind of. 5. The end times. Black Hebrew Israelites believe that in the end times, that when the Messiah comes, God will restore Israel and all other nations will serve the nation of Israel as slaves or shall be destroyed by God. Isaiah 61:5-6, "Strangers will shepherd your flocks, foreigners will work your fields and vineyards, and you will be called priests of the Lord. You will be named ministers of our God, you will feed on the wealth of nations, and in their riches you will boast." Isaiah 60:12, the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. So there's quite a lot of biblical texts that they use to justify why they think that everyone else should be their slaves. This is also what mainstream Jews believe will happen when the Moshiach comes, where all nations will be forced to adhere to Noahide law, in which Christians will be beheaded for idolatry. Fun fact, Ben Shapiro even wrote a town hall article trying to entice Americans about the idea of Noahide law in the US in 2003. So, in a roundabout way, he's basically advocating for the... Well, how about we just leave it there, shall we? Now, the real question is, are the African Americans who were originally taken as slaves, part of the transatlantic slave trade, the true Israelites? Well, most of the evidence suggests no, actually. You could look at it from a number of different ways. Culturally, the ancient Israelites were a learned people that did record historical events and were capable of reading and writing. If they were to have travelled to West Africa, then you would probably have archaeological trails spanning Egypt to the Ivory Coast. But they don't exist. As well as the fact that when the first European merchants arrived in West Africa, there was no record of any written language, never mind Hebrew. Secondly, DNA. There's no real genetic continuity. Judaism is an ethno-religion and is matrilineal, meaning it's passed down through the mother. Conveniently, this also allows you to trace lineages through mitochondrial DNA, as during fertilization, only maternal mitochondrial DNA is passed down. Meaning, if you don't have Jewish mtDNA, you probably aren't Jewish and or related to ancient Israelites, which, unfortunately, is the case for West African/African American populations. The most common mtDNA haplogroup in African Americans is L2A, which is commonly associated with Bantu expansion eastwards in Africa. This haplogroup is found very rarely in Jewish populations, having around 0 to 2% prevalence, with the exception being Ethiopian Jews, but you can make of that what you will. Also, scripture seems to refute the black Hebrew Israelite claims, as in Genesis 10, the Tablet of Nations, it states that the nations of Africa descend from Noah's son Ham and not Shem, which is who the ancient Israelites actually descend from. Shem, Shemites, Semites. There's a lot of other things you could probably talk about as well, but it kind of feels like beating a dead horse at this point. Finally, time to talk about contemporary figures in the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. Well, firstly, we have a leader of the Sicarii Black Hebrew Israelites, Adonis Glord, who also goes by the moniker Hebrew Guerrilla. First of all, that's a spectacular nickname. Shout out to my vanilla gorillas, if you know, you know. And secondly, I mean no offense, brother, but you're looking a little pale. Are you sure you're part of the club? The whole point of the Black Hebrew Israelites are that they believe it's black people who are the real Israelites, and no offense, but you don't look very black. Also, I said he is a leader of the SBHI, when I should say former leader, because he recently stepped down because of allegations of race play. Man, what the hell? He apparently fetishized black women being in relationships with white men and demoralizing black men. I knew it! He definitely isn't a brother, and this was all exposed like 10 months ago, and he's now no longer associated with the Sicarii Black Hebrew Israelites. As far as I'm aware, anyway. I also want to give a shout out to Captain Dzariak, who's a preacher of the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. He's done a bunch of interviews, and honestly, I'm a fan. He's just funny as hell. I recommend you watch the Mata and Evan videos where he has the captain go up against a bunch of rabbis, and it ends up becoming a massive shit show.
If you get him to kiss your boot, that'll be fire.
You kiss my boot?
Hell no.
Why is that?
Because our people did that already. You can kiss my boot though.
Yeah, you guys are already familiar. It's in your blood.
No, it's not.
That's quality content right there. And it's actually one of the reasons why I started researching this video in the first place. Shout out to the main man, Captain Dzariak. Keep putting those Edomites in place. You heard. Also, let me quickly give a shout out to this white black Hebrew Israelite who was actually just a comedian who tried to infiltrate an ISUPK preaching group, but unfortunately didn't convince them of his true Israelite heritage. Shout out to this guy here. But anyway, that's all we have for the black Hebrew Israelites. To the Edomites, you can kiss my boot. To the brothers, keep yourselves steadfast. And to my subscribers, have a nice one. But anyway, that's all we have for the black Hebrew Israelites. If you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing. But other than that, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye.